Hey, babe, and welcome to the Peripeteia podcast, a talk show for women. This is the place to talk about how we're ditching our bad habits, long-held patterns, and limiting beliefs. The time is now to stop outsourcing and start insourcing our happiness and bliss. Am I right? I'm Heather Lowe, your empowering life coach, ready to guide you on this incredible journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and freedom. If you're feeling stuck in the cycle and wondering what life could look like if you've liberated yourself, well, I've got something just for you. I created a free transformational guide to help you take those first empowering steps towards a healthier and more fulfilling life, the one that you desire. This guide is packed with practical tools, mindset shifts, journal prompts that dig deep, and real-life insights to support you in making changes that truly stick. So, if you're ready to explore what's possible, head over to ditchthedrink.com and grab your free transformational guide today. Again, ditchthedrink.com. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Now, let's dive into today's episode and get inspired to create the life you deserve, like so many other babes are doing right now. Here we go. Welcome, Meghann Perry, to the Peripeteia podcast. I am so grateful that you're here. And I just told you before we hit record that literally every time I get to be in your presence, I'm moved to tears typically. So your story is so powerful. Peripeteia means a curveball or a change in events. When I started this podcast, there's nobody I could think of that embraces that curveball, turnaround, transformation more than you. So I was lucky enough to hear you speak your story at the She Recovers conference in Chicago. And then I just became a fangirl, followed you around. I know we met at a recovery conference in Denver, and I was able to take your storytelling class. Storytelling is just so important to me. Your class was transformative for me. It was so hard for me as a writer to not write, but speak my story. I felt so vulnerable. Here I am, this award-winning sober coach, and being in a virtual room of people sharing my story, I had a lump in my throat the entire time, but ultimately came up with something pretty beautiful. So I see how you've changed the lives of others, and I see how you've changed the life of your own. And I'm just so, so grateful to have you here. So thank you.
Heather, I love being amongst just people who help change other people's lives. And so to hear you say that, I'm like, yeah, but you do that too.
Oh yeah, you can see it in one, you can see it in me. It's like a mirror, right?
Yeah, it's just, we have such an amazing, it's easy to get focused on what is hard or, bad or whatever. But when I think about how many amazing people like yourself that I get to just to be in space with and be in connection with, who are doing incredible work helping others in whether they mean to or not, right? So a lot of the times we're just helping ourselves, but we're helping others.
And sometimes just sharing our story is helpful without any credentials after our name, right? Except for somebody who's had a lived experience.
Absolutely. And all of what I do comes from things that I either did do or do that help me. And so all of my work with storytelling was like, oh my gosh, I discovered this amazing thing. Come on, everybody, come do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, yeah, I was sold for sure on that. And it's such a powerful way to share and help yourself and help others by speaking it out loud, right? There's the quote about shame hides in dark corners, right? And secrets. And when we say it out loud, it releases us from a lot of that shame. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This journey of self-compassion, embracing your whole self and coming home, and it's not a simple story. When we originally talked, it was like, you have this made for TV movie comeback story. And in fact, I wanted to share, I have my mother-in-law's hand-me-down People magazine here. And in it is your daughter. The literal centerfold of People magazine is your daughter, Sophie. And instead of reading your bio, I was going to just read a brief paragraph that they have here. And I thought that would be kind of a good jumping off point for us. So this story is called Born Dependent on Drugs. These kids are unbelievably resilient. In this corner section, it says bonding with mom. Starting at age 4, Sophie Perry Stewart began living in foster care and with relatives while her mom, Meghann Perry, sought treatment for addiction. Through Megan's health and legal struggles, I never gave up on getting better, she says. 6 years later, she and her daughter moved back in together. Megan's recovery has been a cornerstone of their relationship as it has healed. We are a team these days, Sophie says, and like any family, we do our best to take care of each other. That's going to bring us both to tears right from the beginning.
Yes. And yeah, it's so complicated. Like it's already complicated just hearing you read that, because I'm in a time of difficulty in my relationship with Sophie. And so just the complexity of all that we are today and all that we have been. And 23 years, she's 23, and so much has happened, and good things and not so good things, and just challenges and struggles and things we've overcome and things we still face every day as challenges. And it's hard to hold all of that together in one. That the People article is just one tiny slice of all that has happened, and it's interesting. I just want to say that it's weird that people have People magazine and they're like, I saw you, People magazine, or and to have you hold that up and sort of read it, because it's this weird meeting of my personal world and this exterior world that I have no control over in terms of how people see me and people know who I am and all of that. And so it's just feeling very complex in this moment to have you share that article and think about where I am with my relationship with Sophie, where I am personally, and where I am in relationship with my stories. And I think that's the heart of my work is being in relationship with my stories, and therefore in relationship with all of the selves who navigated all of that, and all of the people that I've been in that 23 years, and all of the people that I was in the 28 years before that. It's a lot to hold. It's a lot to hold.
Yeah. I think of self as the Russian nesting dolls, kind of, right? Like each of our previous selves lives inside this current shell that we're holding. And we may act and behave in this way or be this age with these experiences, but all those previous versions are there with us. Do you see yourself in that way?
Absolutely. And oh my goodness, I've learned so much about that with the storytelling work. And like right now, I'm in the season of sadness that I'm really dealing with some very just acute sadness and grief. And partly it's the time of the year. I find, it's the holidays right now, and I find that really challenging. Part of it is that, I'm going through some challenges in my relationship with Sophie. Part of it is that I'm doing some writing and I'm digging deep, and I literally dug deep in my basement to find old records and photos and everything of my past. And I think that when I think about that sadness, I think that there are many selves of me who are bringing that sadness to this moment and this day. So as I sit with this sadness and I try to honor it, I try to, which I don't know if that's kind of feels like a cliche these days. So like, I'm going to honor my feelings, but I don't want to dismiss. I don't want to put aside. I don't want to negate. I want to hold sadness, which is not fun. But in that sadness, it are the voices of all of those girls and women that I've been, who have experienced the things that create the sadness and bring this grief. And so there's a beautiful aspect to the sadness too, because I can hear them talking to me. I can feel them with me. And as I'm in a season right now of writing, which, I primarily work in verbal storytelling right now, I'm writing the past. And so those characters, those selves of me they're really speaking right now. They're very present with me right now, which is it's like that hard work that is healing. It's that hard work that you're like, oh, I know this is going to be good for me, and it feels really hard right now
Yeah.
to try to bring all of them together. I have been so many different people, and I think about my past selves that I just continually reinvented myself to meet the next occasion. And I've had a life of epic twists and turns, of huge paradoxes, but at its core, for as long as I can remember, it's been survival. It's just been, how do I survive the next thing that's happening to me?
Mm-hmm.
And so the selves that were cast aside were the ones that didn't help me survive.
Mm.
And so that's a lot of beautiful people that got left behind.
Mm-hmm.
The little girls and the teenagers who dreamed of big things, and the early 20s of realizing those dreams were gone and were never going to happen, and kind of facing this new reality as somebody with a really, really chaotic and problematic relationship to substances that was causing profound harm and putting me in very dangerous situations. And who did I have to become to walk through that? And when I think about just how many things have happened over the course of my life that have been challenging and that have demanded that I survive, find a way to survive in some way, I feel the loss of so many of those beautiful selves that had to be abandoned in order to get through the next situation. And that's just, it just, a lot of that sadness is those girls speaking, is those voices and those people that I have been clamoring for my attention, wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, wanting to be understood and known, and really wanting to become one with me.
Mm.
I think the greatest thing that I could do in this sort of self journey is have everybody be home with me.
Yeah.
All come back home. I have this sort of imagery that I go to of, when I've had a lot of trauma, and I've done a fair amount of trauma work. And so in EMDR, and the first task is create that safe place. So my safe place is this meadow. It's a beautiful meadow, and it's summer, and there's lots of wildflowers and trees and running water and bugs and birds, and it's just this beautiful place. And I have my dog Ruby with me. She's right here behind me. She's just a big white oaf. She's just a very gentle, loving dog, and she was kind of my safe person to be in the meadow with me. And then I picture these girls, the 4-year-old and the 7-year-old and the 9-year-old and the 15-year-old and the 22-year-old walking into that meadow and being seen and recognized and welcomed. And that if I keep going and do the work well, all of us will be in that meadow together.
Mhm.
And how
Are they walking individually in?
Mhm.
Oh, and who are they being welcomed by? Current you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And Ruby. I need help. I need to support somebody. So that's Ruby, who, because the challenge has been, I don't love them. And in fact, I've soundly rejected them most of my life. And I've resented them. And I've even hated them at times, and different ones at different times for different reasons. But I think I blamed myself for a lot of the circumstances I found myself in across my life. And so I blamed that girl or that woman that I was at the time for putting me in that position.
Because you had done wrong.
Because something I did wrong, or I was just inherently bad, and that's why these things happened to me.
Mm.
So,
Your mistake.
yeah, like all of the really harmful interactions with men, right?
Mhm.
My own Me Too moments, or allowing myself to be treated certain ways, or being harmed in certain ways, or other dangerous situations. I've had guns to my head. I've been in the middle of gang beefs. Like, I've been in such profound danger so many times, and I always thought it was my fault. I made the decisions that got me here.
Mhm.
And so I would reject the girls who were so vulnerable or weak
Mhm.
to have allowed a man to do that to me, or who were so stupid to put myself in that situation, to be at such high risk and have a gun to my head, or, it's my own terrible decision making. And so I just rejected those
That
symbols.
critic is trying to be your protector, right? Saying if you were so stupid in the past, don't be so stupid now, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and just that I deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
I deserved it, and reconciliation with them and with that rejection of them is hard work. It's hard work, but
Yeah.
it's
It was your protection and survival. I can see that, to shut them down, to not be them, to not welcome them, to exit them from your life, show them the door, and be somebody different, somebody smarter, somebody who didn't make those mistakes, somebody who didn't put themselves in those situations, right? But now, at this point in your life, you are going excavating for them, is what I'm hearing. You are going to find them. They've been put to pasture, and you're going out to the meadow to call their name and bring them back in. They've been lost, and you told them to get lost, right? And now you're saying, come here, 4-year-old Meghann, and 7-year-old, and 9-year-old, and 20-year-old, and you are welcome here. I want to know you. So with this, and this is like hard work. Like you said, it's bringing a lot of sadness in doing it. Why go excavating for this? Why do this? Why now?
why now. So why now is harder to answer than the why. I think that, in my own healing journey, I've always been a storyteller of some kind. I went to school for theater. I was always a writer, and I've always been most fascinated by myself. So, personal narrative, docudrama, that kind of thing, I've always loved the most, because I think I recognize the healing and the power that comes from a really knowing the meaning of what has happened to me and being able to talk about it. And so I think I've been on the search for meaning. I've been on the search for how to figure out, trying to figure out, how did all of this happen to me?
Mm.
Why did all of it happen to me? And what do I do with it? And I think for myself, I've spent the last 10 years working in the addiction recovery space, and really being about helping others. And that only goes so far.
Mm-hmm.
When it's the work I need to do is on me.
Damn. Right. I'm like, don't tell me that. Wait yours. It's so helpful to help other people live their lives, their best lives, and heal their trauma. Don't,
About that.
I don't need a mirror. Thank you very much. I'm fine. I'm so fully evolved over here. Yeah.
And my life has to mean more than just that I went through this to help others. Because I think
Mm.
so many people in recovery define themselves sort of, it's like we have to earn our wellness. We have to earn our recovery, and we don't deserve it unless we're working hard and we're giving it away. And
it's our new codependency. It's codependency in a new way,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
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 And it's just on a deep level for me. It was, I don't deserve this unless I'm like saving lives on this noble mission. Well, I can't save anybody's life. Let's just get that out of the way. I do not have that kind of power.
You did move me to tears, but but we all are in charge of saving our own lives for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that fuel runs out. I can't run on helping others to earn my life.
So it was repentance. It felt like repentance for you. And this is interesting because you've been in the prison system. So almost like you've been conditioned, I mean, maybe just in society in general, conditioned that if you do bad, now do your community service. I don't know if you grew up Catholic, but maybe then you'll be saved, right? Then there's a spot for you in heaven or something.
And how different our lives could be. I know mine for sure. If I believed that I deserved a good life, I did not have that belief system at all. And I'm just getting there.
Oh, so were you born, your previous thinking, born not deserving a good life, or because of the poor choices you made, you didn't deserve a good life, or you couldn't recover from the things you had done that were bad and wrong?
I think that I was raised to believe I had to earn it.
Oh,
And then I really messed everything up.
if you're a good girl, if you do these things, then you deserve enlightenment
To earn it.
and inner peace and stuff by your behavior.
And then look
Good
what
behavior.
happened. Look what I did.
You really fucked that up. You blew it up. Let's be honest. Okay? You don't get to People Magazine without it. Okay. They need this story.
And my only deserving was earned by my righteousness and my redemption story and my saving the world. Was the only way that I could reconcile my worth and that I deserved this new life that I have. And so I put myself very, very close to a really serious mental health crisis trying to do that. And even, when I stepped back from my work, I was a recovery coach, and I stepped back from direct service work because I was giving way too much away. But I just came to a place where I realized how hollow I was, I guess, like how I had rejected all of those parts of me. And when I took away the hero that saved everybody, then you take away the hero and whoa, there's like nothing there, is what it felt like. There's nothing left here. And how painful it is to recognize that I don't have my own self-worth and my own sense of deserving a good life. Like, who am I if I'm not all these other things? So I had stripped away what I used to call the addict, the felon, the person who's unhoused, the person who's violent, who's and then I became a hero, and then I stripped away. I'm still trying to. Oh my God.
You're in process, yeah.
But once I started taking that away, what was left? Not very much.
Oh, you're saying that because there's nothing left for the ego, let's say, that she recovers speaker and top storyteller and paid, keynote or whatever. But what I see is what's left is you, just you, all of you, not that ego. And you have always been a little bit fascinated with yourself. You mentioned that in theater. So this journey to self-love, from self-blame to self-love, that's the most powerful.
Because, I can tell you intellectually that what was left was this good, wonderful, beautiful, perfectly designed, imperfect human. But I couldn't tell you that from in my heart or in my belly. And so, the shell that was left had to figure out, how do I rebuild or how do I reclaim? And that's where the storytelling came in, because it's true. I have all these external accolades and People Magazine and keynotes, and everyone knows who I'm in a pond, so I'm not that, a big fish in my little pond and whatever.
Right.
I have all this external accomplishments and, people telling me I'm wonderful and all of that. But underneath that was I'm only wonderful for those things. But
and it doesn't matter. The external doesn't matter if you don't feel it from within, from in your belly, right?
Yes. So that's the work, and that reclaiming of self has been for me done through storytelling. And so, yes, to answer your original question, yes, I am very deliberately going out. And when I started this, I didn't know that's what I was doing. And a fascination with myself is really just this. I mean, we all have a fascination with ourselves that's ego driven, and is actually a normal primal survival strategy that's built
Right.
into us. So there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and also as babies, we're fascinated with our own reflection.
Yeah.
Like we should be. Like I think that's beautiful. I don't
Yeah.
think that's arrogant. Like we should be fascinated. Our dogs are fascinated with their own reflection, right? Like this is like we
Whole thing.
should be fascinated with ourselves. I love that.
Yeah. Well, here I am discounting it a little because I don't want to, like that ego check. It's like
Yeah.
a little complicated, but
Oh, why not be in love with ourselves?
I would love to. Yes, working on it. Working on it. And so, yeah, for me, it was just, I need to write and I need to storytell to make sense of myself to myself and to understand who I actually am without all of that other stuff. And my early storytelling was feeding that external stuff. And I just gotten to a point over the last few years, I honestly, doing some trauma therapy, I did a year and a half of like a group trauma therapy process with 3 other women and an amazing counselor. And that really shifted things to me starting to storytell in a much more authentic way, and for not so much an ego driven way, but for myself, like really, really for myself. And that has really helped me go back and reclaim and rediscover and incorporate, as well as always creating new selves and new versions of myself to meet the new moment. But the new moment, thank God, isn't the most recent arrest. The new moment is not another overdose. The new moment is not, losing custody of my child. Like the new moments are some epic adventure, or a challenging work situation that I signed up for because I love to be challenged and I love to take like professional risks or whatever. Or in my, I am in a relationship now, an intimate relationship, which is like,
What?
I was single for 6. I had
A lot of opportunities for learning.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I had 2 long-term, disastrous, deep love, but both of us being very, very unwell relationships. And then I was alone for 6 years in recovery. And so now being in a relationship with another person in who's long-term recovery is such a learning. I'm learning so much about myself.
Or a lot of opportunities for development here. Yes.
Yeah, but these are the moments I get to meet with new versions of myself today,
Yeah. And I feel like the question to ask yourself over and over again to test the strength of self is like, is that the most honest in your storytelling to you? Is that the most honest version of the story? No. Okay, write it again. Is this the most honest? No. Maybe the third time you're starting to actually tap into something, right?
The truth of your truth, right? I want the truthiest truth I can find. And that's where the shift has been in my speaking is how honest can I really be with myself?
Yeah.
For the purpose of honoring myself, being in integrity with my own self, and with, trying to be the truest version of myself, and with trying to discern meaning and understand things in a way that it is true, because I know that the stories that I tell myself are just the stories that I tell myself. They aren't necessarily true.
Right.
I have to work at them being true. And I think that process of going back and saying, okay, that's just the bullshit. That's just the bullshit I've been saying for 15 years about this thing. What is actually the closest I can get to the truth? And when we re-author, that's narrative therapy, right? And that's the work that I do with others is essentially a narrative therapy process of saying, and I'll give you an example. And it's the story that most people know me for, which is partly what was in People magazine. But I was 28 and I found out that I was on methadone. I'd stopped using heroin. Right after that, I found out that I was pregnant. My husband and I were having a baby all of a sudden. And 5 weeks after we found out that I was pregnant, the Drug Enforcement Administration came to the door with a felony indictment for trafficking heroin for something that had happened 3 months before I got pregnant. And so I found myself incarcerated at 5 months pregnant. My husband at the time was an undocumented immigrant and was, using and really struggling and not super able to support me. He was fighting his own battles, and I had no bail, and they wanted 2 years for this felony trafficking charge. My first offense of any kind, except for like a small teenage thing. And I found myself in that jail, so full of self-loathing, so aghast and disbelieving of the circumstances I'd found myself in, and completely blaming myself. And I thought that I was a terrible, terrible mother. I had no right to be a mother. And I was totally destroying both my own life and my daughter's life before her life had even begun. And basically, I was just straight up fucking everything up, not just for me, but for my child. And I told the story that way. I was simultaneously both a terrible victim, like such a victim that should be pitied, and also a perpetrator of everything that was happening to me. And that's how I told the story for years, because that was the story I needed to tell myself at the time to sort of protect me and find a way to make things make sense or be okay or something to reconcile that somehow of how I was in that situation to myself and to others. And it served me to try to get my needs met. And so it was this whole concocted story pieced together in during the time of the greatest trauma of my life. And so that became the truth. And that's what I told. I told that story for over a decade. And I told it publicly. I got into recovery. I started doing advocacy, and I'm at Harvard Law School. I'm in a CBS News documentary. I'm in all of these very public spaces telling the story from that perspective. And as I got a little deeper into the craft of storytelling and started understanding that that wasn't the truth and seeking that truthier truth and going on that expedition back to see what really went on and who I was. Really, I think who I was.
Mm.
I found out that was all bull. That was all crap. That was not the story at all. The story was much more something like this. I was doing the best that I could to stop using the substances that were the most chaotic for me. I was taking medication to help me do that. I ended up pregnant because I had gone years without even having a menstrual cycle or anything. I had no idea that I even was capable of getting pregnant. And that what happened with the DEA and the charges it just is what it is. The system is what it is. But when I found myself in jail, the truth is that I wanted desperately to be a good mother. I wanted the best life for my child. I desperately wanted out of the life that I had been living. And I really, really wanted to change. And so all of a sudden, there's this compassion that came in. There's this self-forgiveness that came in. There's this self-love that entered the story that had not been there before. And as I started to sort of live in that story, I could soften towards myself. There was a softening. There was a letting go. There was a love that came in that I haven't had before. And so that was a game-changing moment for me of when I started to understand that I could rewrite those stories and re-narrate them to myself and profoundly change who I am now by changing who I knew myself to be and know myself to have been then. And that's when it was like the light bulb really went off, and that's really been the primary work that I've done since is doing that for myself, and we're continuing to do that and helping others do that. And I'm writing right now about that time in my life, and that was the digging deep in the basement, was to find, I have my whole record from the methadone clinic from that time, and I have my entire all the court documents and police records from that time. I'm discovering these crazy things that I had no idea were true, and kind of piecing back together and trying to go deep and really see her and piece it back together again. So this is yet again a newer version of this, a deeper understanding and a truthier truth that I'm coming to now, 23 years later.
Mm-hmm. You're healing that person inside of you, and you can't go back. I mean, oh my gosh, knowing what you know now, you want to go back, right, to that cell and say, you're doing the best you can. You want to be a good mom. At the time, you probably couldn't even say that because that would show that you're not being a good mom, and that would be more self-blame. You couldn't get to that level of honesty, but now you can, in your tenderness towards yourself. And now, again, when you're signing up for something, it's a work risk. It's not going to keep you in or out of jail likely at this point, but you can do, I'm nervous. Why? No one's going to like you. It's going to fail. It's going to flop. You can go, my heart intention is to give my best here. My heart intention is to be my truthiest version of myself and share that in hopes that that will help heal me and others. So you're taking that, carrying it with you. You're scooping up all those old selves and bringing them with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have new eyes to see now.
Yeah. And it's, and it's hard and it's slow and it's good. And I can't help but recognize too that I'm not doing such a good job of that with my present self.
Mm.
Right. So the compassion, I've got the retroactive compassion working.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And I'm like, wow, if I could just apply all that to my present self, but maybe I'll have to wait for my future self to be able to be that compassionate towards my present self. But
yeah, you have to go, what would 60-year-old Meghann say?
Yes.
What would 80-year-old Meghann say?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Yeah. The midlife Meghann or whatever.
Yeah, but still it is certainly allowing so much more space for self-love in my life. And I'm so much more forgiving of myself and so much more compassionate towards myself. And I keep writing and I keep storytelling and I keep going because I do want to be at peace. Oh my goodness. I would love to be at peace with myself. And that's really
You don't feel like you have that yet? Have you had that ever?
I don't think I've ever had it. I think that I grew up with just a sense of longing, a sense of loss, a sense of insecurity, like instability. So I don't feel like I've ever had it. I've always had some. And do I have a lot more today? Oh my gosh, yes. But I'm still a relatively tormented spirit.
Yeah, this theme that is coming up in this conversation that I have the imagery that you do, and I'm feeling it so strong, is lost, these little selves lost, right? And told to get lost. And you're saying that's sort of your upbringing too. And this desire to come home, everybody home, and you're safe here and secure, and it's a peaceful home.
Yes, yes. Because, I don't want people to look at me for 1 minute and look at the work that I do and think I have it figured out. Right. I don't want people to look at me and see like, oh, these, external things. And I would love for folks to know that I'm still just like you. Like I'm still kind of lost. I'm still have a lot of grief. I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I still struggle to do basic tasks some days. Like I'm still in it. I'm still in it. But the difference is that today I'm in it with an unfailing sense of hope and belief in my ability to navigate it. Like, I'm still in it, but I know I'm okay, which is the big difference. I never knew I was okay. And so this sort of restorative work is like increasing fortitude and bringing those selves home because they strengthen me. Because I'm so much stronger and more capable when I'm well-rounded and not just one or two versions of myself. It's like I have a bigger toolkit because all of those wonderful and challenging traits and people and versions and things about me they're all here together and they're working together most days.
Mhm. Yeah, you're so tender now, which I can appreciate. And it's not performative. And in fact, I'll tell the listeners, you wouldn't let me do this rags to riches story or before and after, like, oh, I was down at like the rock star story, like then came the drugs and the alcohol, the incarceration. And now everything is shiny and new because that isn't the way it is. And as a coach myself, it's like, I'm in the darkness with you. I've been through the darkness. I'll be in the darkness again. When I summit this mountain, there's another summit around the corner. Everything is impermanent. And our capacity to help and heal ourselves is our capacity to help and assist with somebody else's healing and growth as well. I do never think I'm standing at the pulpit preaching down to the people, right? Because no, I'm sitting in the trenches with you. We do this work together. And I understand the pain and the challenges because I'm doing it too alongside linked arms. So
Yeah, some of my favorite work that I do is story coaching. Oh my goodness, the one-on-one story coaching is so you saying that I'm tender, I'm like a little bit because that is not what I was.
no, I know. I can imagine.
Tender wasn't part of the picture. But it is one of the things that I don't think of about myself, but I get that feedback a lot. But then when I'm story coaching and I'm one-on-one with somebody and I'm helping them re-navigate some of the most challenging things that they've been through in their lives, there is this profound, gentle, tender, loving part of me that comes and meets them in that moment that is just it's such a beautiful, beautiful feeling to be able to share that with another person, especially a person who's hurting and trying to figure out hard stuff. And when we're able to be open like that and say, I can't walk in your shoes, and nor do I want to, and nor should I, but I can just stand there with you. And I do know the way out. And so I will come partway into that darkness or that challenge with you. And I want to love you in that moment. And I'm not going to let us stay there for sure.
You'll shine a light on the exit. It's up to them to take the step, but you can shine the light on the exit sign, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But it's beautiful to be able to offer somebody else something that I was not able to offer myself for so long.
But now that's the tender you that you bring when you go to that basement excavating, right?
Yes. Well, I think that the one in the basement is a big coat of armor on. But when she comes out of the basement, she can open up a little bit more. But it's still a very scary and dangerous place down in the basement. But but yes, when I write and when I restory myself, that tenderness is
Restory. I like that. Restore. Like you said, this restorative practice, this restorative, and you restory. When I restore
I never made that connection though.
Oh, aha.
Yes. But yeah, it's a restoring. I'm retelling. I'm changing the story. And that isn't deceptive or dishonest or anything. It's me going back and trying to be more honest. And so changing my story is the power. And that's the thing that I love to do with other people is let me help you restory. I have no idea what the new story is. I have no idea what is not working for you in the old story, but I'm just here to help you, guide you through reauthoring that story because our stories are relationships. We're in relationship with the story. We're in relationship with the events. We're in relationship with the person who navigated those events. Everything is relative. So restoring is a lifelong process that we get to engage in. It's a beautiful dance we can do with our pasts and to sort of dip in and dip back out and walk alongside some of those people and places and things that we've been through and bring them along, in our new dance. And it's just kind of this beautiful relationship, right?
Yeah, to self, to story, to others. I love it. And you definitely help me do that, even in your group course. I have to say, I have old documents. I have, I can't believe my mom has this, but like my kindergarten screening paperwork, well, they have quotes from me in there.
Yeah.
And so here I am, like 4 years old, pre-kindergarten, right? And
Yeah.
I'm complaining that their crayons are garbage. They're not sharp crayons. They're garbage crayons, broken crayons. I can't color in the lines. I can't do my best work here because these tools don't work. Like, obviously, I'm a recovering perfectionist, right? Like, I was 4 years old and like, my quotes in there as a 4 year old, like these are not good crayons. You only have brown. These crayons are broken. I need sharp crayons. I have to color in the lines and I have to do my best work. I'm like, they're laid the groundwork for a drinking problem later in life. Things are not perfect and it's not my fault. Like I have the wrong tools. It was just like, oh gosh, this has been in me for so long. So when I dig a little deeper, it's like, why did you have to be perfect? Like, what came in that was like, well, because my parents are divorced, by the time I was like 3. So if I was perfect, then everyone would know that everything's okay. My dad's okay. My mom's okay. All the families are, everything is okay because look at Heather. She's perfect, right? So I feel that the going back and new eyes to see some of that stuff for sure. Can you touch on forgiveness? Because that is a hard one. Like, what does that mean? And how do you really go back? And who's that person in that cell that was feeling that? And the you now, the tender storyteller of you now. Do you forgive yourself over and over again? Does it keep coming up? Does that change? Can you share any insight you have on that?
Yeah, it's not a one and done.
Damn.
Really
Okay.
not a one and done.
Okay.
I think it's degrees. I think it's
Okay.
done by degrees.
Mm.
And I think that the more that I've been able to understand myself in that time, whichever time, whatever it may be, right? The more understanding I have of myself, the easier it is to forgive myself.
Mm.
So when it's just trying to see all of the factors at play and not just my role in something. And I know, like if you're in a 12-step program, right, then we spend a lot of energy on my character defects and how I was responsible for all the things that happened to me. And there's value in that. And when I left, I did that process. And when I left 12-step, I found value in also going back and really seeing all the things that weren't in my control, the things that weren't because of a flaw in me or a defect or a bad behavior or something, and being able to hold a bigger picture of it, of what was going on. I didn't have any support. There were so many factors that contributed to me ending up in that situation that there's no way I could say that I did that to myself.
Yeah, you can kind of go, what else could be true? Well, what else could be true?
God,
What
yeah.
else could be true? Right?
Yeah. And so as I look at those things, then that understanding, a greater understanding, a more balanced look at it
It wasn't
allows
just
me
you.
to see that there were so many things that were going on. And so many of them weren't that I had no control over, or they were just how where the circumstances that happened to be. And that's nobody's fault. When I stopped looking for it to be someone's fault is when I'm truly free from it. So I was very angry at the criminal justice system for a really long time, and I still kind of am. I had these rogue DEA agents who broke all the rules, stole my passport. They did all this stuff that was super unethical, and they both got like demoted, fired, sued, and everything later for stuff they were doing to other people. So that was a real thing that was happening. It wasn't me, like like feeling victimized or whatever.
We're also treated poorly and unfairly.
Yeah, I was one of many people. And the criminal justice system is flawed and all of that. It wasn't my undocumented husband with chaotic substance uses fault. Did some of the things he did contribute? Of course it did, but we both ended up with him being undocumented in the system. And so it's been I blamed him for so long. For so many things. And so when I stopped needing to blame anybody or anything, and I just had a level of acceptance of, well, this is just what happened, then that forgiveness comes not just for me, but for those 2 DEA agents, for my husband, for my parents, for all of the systems at play,
Mhm.
I could let go of all of the hatred and anger and blame and just be in a space of forgiving all of it. Now that is and I just want to be really clear, that is not that is not a finished process. I still
Mhm.
have a lot of feelings about a lot of things and go through phases of being angry at one or another or whatever. So it isn't an event.
Right. Radical acceptance, though, is the path to radical forgiveness.
Yes.
Hearing.
Yes. Because now I don't need to make it someone's fault. It doesn't have to be that someone did something to me. That's a
Mhm.
very disempowering stance to have.
Mhm.
And so there's no power in being a victim role.
Mhm.
It is often an essential part of a process,
Mhm.
but it's not a place I want to stay. And so when I can step out of that disempowered stance and just like, I think the most power is not being the perpetrator and not being the victim, but being neutral. And that's where I now have the ability to see things in a way that helps me navigate things, helps me understand, and helps me see myself much more honestly. And we really just don't get anything good out of blaming ourselves for anything. Like what does that actually serve? Do we need to get honest about some of in order to face some of the things that we need to change? Yes, we have to get honest about those. And so we want to be true, looking truly at, if I continue this behavior, these consequences are going to continue to happen. So I know I need to face that and deal with that. Yes. But
Yeah.
to go back and look for things being my fault,
Mm.
it doesn't serve anything.
No, yeah, I'm with you. That's a really powerful thing, especially for people in early sobriety, because the thought of the things I had done, anything that has to do with my children, especially, no bigger guilt and shame than that. No one knows that better than you. That would about pull me back into drinking, right? So just the mantra, change behavior is the best apology to myself and to others. That was my mantra my entire first year, because the only place we make change is in the now, right? And so I'm just going to not drink today. Someday I'll figure all that out. Someday I'll have the strength to open that box and peel back those layers. But today I'm not going to drink, and that's all I can do about everything I've already done is
Mhm.
just not drink in this moment. And then the next, and then the next. And, when you get some time and space, when your substance is in the rearview mirror, you start to see things with, different clarity and new eyes and more compassion and the whole story, the re-story, and it starts to look different. And you have some acceptance for who you were, and that's not who you are today, right?
We don't have to reject that person. We don't have
Yeah.
to reject them. I think we spend a lot of what is taught in recovery is having to reject the former self. And I think that's a real misservice. I think that's really can be damaging. And so we just have to see ourselves. We don't have to
Yeah.
reject ourselves. We just have to see ourselves for what is true. And that these choices or this behavior or this, is not contributing to me getting where I want to be or living the kind of life I want to live. But when we separate ourselves, of that past bad self and this current good or better self,
Mhm.
that's where we leave those girls behind. That's where we,
Yeah. You know what I always say? I got before and after pictures. They're not weight loss pictures, to be clear. My husband lost a lot of weight when I quit drinking, and I was the one with the problem, but that's another story. The before and after, I say, what I do is I honor that girl in the before picture because she was the one that started to step out of that hole. It wasn't this shiny after with a better filter and a little less bloated, less happier. The lights are back on in my eyes. Obviously, there's all the beautiful gifts of recovery that the insides and my outsides are now matching. But it was that sad, bloated, unhappy, dead-eyed girl that started to take the step out of that hole. That if it weren't for the before, there would be no after. And it was the girl in the before that did that, not the one in the
she's
after.
the one that made it through. She's the one
Yeah.
that made it through. Part of our restoring process is going back and we don't tell the story of the trauma. We tell the story of how we navigated the trauma.
Yeah.
The big difference.
Yeah.
I'm not going back to rehash all the terrible things that happened. I'm going back to find all of the innate traits, the skills, the abilities, the wisdom, the knowledge that I had that had me survive that trauma.
Yeah,
And that
got me
makes
here.
me who I am today. So we celebrate, we go back to that situation and we celebrate. Look at what you did. Look at
Yeah.
what you did.
And yeah,
You made these choices, or you used this skill, or you kept this person safe, or you kept yourself safe, or you took the next step. And just having survived that thing is
you
reason for
found solutions. And alcohol and drugs were a solution for a minute from that pain and from that environment, or, get out of your own head because you couldn't stand what was going on. That was
I
meant
don't,
to be a solution.
yeah, I don't get mad that substances were part of my life. Like I truly believe that I am alive because of my substance use, because I believe that I would have ended my life if I didn't have substances. And so I don't blame substances. I developed a very problematic relationship with substances. Again, it's about the relationship. It's not the substance. Substance is inert. It doesn't have any power of its own. It's my relationship to that substance that is up for questioning, right? And so I don't blame myself or get mad at myself that I developed that kind of relationship with the substance. It made perfect sense. It made
Yeah.
perfect sense that who I was and what was happening in my life. It was a very reasonable way to cope with some very unreasonable living conditions. And, and again, that's part of that forgiveness piece. That's part of that acceptance piece of do I wish, that so much harm did not have to be caused? Absolutely. And when I think today, when I sit with the sadness that I have today, it makes me really take stock of how much of my life has been so incredibly painful and how much pain I've been in for most of my life, even in recovery. I will never sugarcoat that it is what it is. But I don't blame the substances. I don't blame the people. I don't think about, I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done that. I just understand. I just understand. This is what happened. And these things happened because these other things happened. And these people did this because they had this. And it just is. And I don't want to forget. And I don't want to reject that past. I want to live in harmony with it and trying to figure out how to live in harmony with the life that I've had is I'll be working on that for a long time. But that's
We'll
so
see you in season 425 when you got that figured out.
not rejecting, not denying,
I love that.
not blaming, not faulting, but just being in harmony with the fact that this is how my life has been. It just is. And so now I'm really sad a lot.
For now.
And that's just, it just is what it is. And it's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm working on being less sad. I'm working on working the sad out.
Yeah, the capacity for sadness is the capacity for joy, though. It goes on both ends. So there is some, not to sugarcoat, but there is a bigger capacity for joy around the corner when you are navigating bigger sadness today.
Yeah,
And
because
you're
I don't want to
capable
be
of it.
depressed.
You haven't been capable of this all your life. You couldn't even feel. You had to pour drugs on it.
Yeah.
And look at you now, feeling sad. What a big accomplishment. Feeling sad a lot, very intensely, all the time. This is actually a big win, Meghann.
It is. It's so funny. I'm doing this zero balancing work, which is really interesting. People go Google it. To try to heal, because a lot of my trauma is in my body and trying to kind of align energy and body and release and all this stuff. I don't really get it all, but I'm signed up. I'm going. But she was like, oh, I feel a lot of sadness. And I was like, yep. And she says, try to put it down. And I got really angry. Like my body, my mind, like I got really angry at her for trying to get me to put it down. And she had good reason for asking me that, but I was like, oh, hell no.
It's very heavy and I have to hold it all the time. I can't let it touch ground.
Yeah, and also it just I don't want to reject any aspect of me. I don't want to put out that sadness because that's another way of rejecting who
Not
I am.
release. It's come in. I don't know what's the opposite of really gather.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
so some of it sucks. It sucks sometimes being like this, but it
Yeah.
is just what you said. Like, I'm so grateful I can have this experience today. And I just want to, I don't, I know, I think some listeners, right, might listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, like she's always, I'm 13 years into having resolved my relationship with substances, and I've done all this work and do this storytelling, and she's, and she's like, so sad. That's not hopeful. But it really is, because there is so much good that's layered in with this. And I have a friend who says like that tears are the love leaking out.
Hmm.
And so like the sadness represents love, and it represents being human and being present in life, and just having all of what this life has to offer. And so I'm sad, and it's okay.
Yeah, the goal isn't to be happy. The goal is to be whole, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to be
And you've
present.
got that. And I just love that, not rejecting any of your pieces and welcoming them all back home to yourself. I mean, I think the people listening, I think that's a beautiful message. I think that's what we all want. I think that's the ultimate goal of enlightenment and inner peace, is that we're not rejecting any bit of us. And it takes some work and going to the basement and some sadness to do that, but the return on investment has got to be grand.
Well, it's amazing. And I really believe in restoring. And I think that's the key, that, whether we do it naturally on our own, because that's just what we do as humans, or we do it in a more structured way or an intentional way, working with somebody or something like that. But it doesn't have to be the full basement to the pregnant in jail moment, right?
Hmm.
It can be a very gentle, loving, slow process. And so, people who are thinking about, well, that sounds intriguing and I might want to do it, but it also sounds really daunting and scary. Restoring is a natural thing that we do, and we can do it. We have full control over our stories and how we engage with them. And so if you're early in recovery, or you're, in a time in your life where you're maybe a little fragile, or you're not in a place where you can engage with deeper work, you can still do this, because it is just innately human. We want to be whole and healed and have love and compassion and forgiveness and like tenderness. Like, these are all really natural human things that we just tend to, quiet down or lock away, or, reject those aspects of ourselves. So it's all there for us. It's all there for us. We might need a little help getting started or figuring out what it looks like, but that integration, that self integration, and the compassion for self it's life changing. It's life changing.
Hmm.
And yes, I agree with you. It is the goal. It is my goal to live all of myself at once.
I love that. Thank you so much, Meghann, for your time today, sharing your story, your vulnerability, your tenderness, your badass toughness too. I'm not going to take that away from you, of course. If people that aren't watching the video, she basically has a red purple mohawk, but so so she's tough and tender. Tell your storytelling course. I did. I mean, I probably took like the 100 level, or gave it the 100 level. Maybe I'd be ready for an even more advanced and even more honest and even more truthier truth the next round. But how can the listeners connect with you, support the work that you're doing, follow you? Not everybody gets their mother-in-law's hand-me-down People magazines. So where else can folks connect with you?
Yes, probably for most people. Well, by the time you're, listening to this,
This
people
is
will be
November of
off the shelf.
2024, by the way.
Yes, yes. But there is an online version of it that you can get anywhere on People magazine if you just Google Meghann Perry. But yeah, the best way to find me is just my name. My organization is Meghann Perry Group. My website is Meghann Perry, which is MEGHANNPERRY. So MeghanPerry.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on the Instagrams, but I'm a little bit old, so I'm not so spend more time on Facebook like most of my generation. But we have workshops every 3 or 4 months or so. And the best thing that we have is, and you can work with me one-on-one anytime. If you go to the website and you want to do one-on-one work, just fill out the contact form and I'll reach out directly. And then every other Sunday afternoon from 3 to 5 Eastern time, we have a Zoom a story gathering, in which you can show up in any way, shape, or form you care to, and listen to other stories, share stories. If you want feedback on those stories, you can get them. If you don't, you don't have to. You don't have to share stories. It's a very warm, gentle, loving space in which to start to try out sort of using your voice and exploring your own stories and gently engaging in a restoring process. So that's free every other Sunday. You can find that on the website too.
Awesome. We'll put everything also in the show notes. Thank you for your time. Be nice to yourselves, every single one of them, Meghann.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me be here. It's been a wonderful conversation.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Peripeteia podcast, a talk show for women. Don't forget to download my free ebook, The 12 Truths to Change Your Life. Do it for the plot. We'll see you in the next episode. Lots of love.